Cool. Good afternoon, everyone. And we are going to begin the panel. I think the title sort of is fairly leading. Women in Tech, is it a man's world? Where clearly it's not. But you're going to hear from some amazing, inspirational people today on specifically why we believe it isn't, and specifically why we believe it's absolutely a fantastic career opportunity, particularly as football is dragged kicking and screaming into the technological age. So first of all, I'm Ben Carter. In my day job, I'm a Chief Marketing Officer. I work for CarWow, which is Europe's largest online car marketplace. Previously worked for a number of the UK's biggest digital businesses, and then I'm also a director of Women in Football. So today, absolutely delighted to be joined by four fantastic panelists. So to my right, we have got Tina Keech Henderson, and I'll let Tina introduce herself in a second. Tina is head of women's football research at Sports Interactive. Not sure if, like me, you spent many years playing Football Manager, but Sports Interactive is behind Football Manager, which is a truly fantastic game. And then to Tina's right, we've got Tanya Powell, who is the CTO and co-founder of Coding Black Females. And then to Tanya's right, we've got Victoire Cogevina Reynal, who is a tech entrepreneur, a UN Women Goodwill Ambassador, the founder of Gloria, and also the VP of Women's Football at OneFootball. And then finally, we've got Sanjay Bhandari, who's the chair of Kick It Out. So, going to start off with Sanjay. And Sanjay, if you could just give a little bit of a background on you. But the question, sort of, first of all, is tech. It's not a man's game, is it?
Right, I've got the difficult question. Yeah, so the background, because you might wonder why I'm here. So I do have a technology background. So first half of my career, I was a lawyer. I then flipped into technology because I helped to write the English court rules on how we deal with electronic evidence, and then I built technology businesses. So for the last 20 years, I've been building technology businesses and sort of ended up being a chief innovation officer in one of the big four, looked after sort of 6,500 people. How do we embrace disruptive technology to change the services we deliver? And now I have a sort of portfolio career. So I do work at Kick It Out and Lawn Tennis Association in sport, but also I chair a space technology company. We sit at the heart of the UK space economy, trying to develop a £40 billion UK space sector. So my experience of technology is across lots of different ranges, right? So I work with people in offshore renewables. I work with cell and gene therapy. We work with our space technology sector. I built data analytics businesses. So the answer to your question is it a man's world? Is yes, no, maybe, and there's no reason why it should be, right? The yes, no, and maybe are, well, it kind of depends how you define tech, right? And you know, some of those areas that I've described are pretty gender balanced. Many of them are not. And in the sporting context, in a football context, I think if we're defining it as being sports science, data analytics, data science, generating insights, yeah, my experience of those kinds of sectors, particularly big data and analytics, is, yeah, they tended to be male-dominated, but tended to be in a very particular way, which is, if you look at any industry close enough, they're very technocratic, in that the people who tend to have the loudest voices or think that they're the smartest people in the room are the people who are the technical domain experts. So guess what? You hang around with a bunch of lawyers, the people who are the nerdiest, geekiest lawyers think they're the best at law. Well, they may be good at the theory, but actually building a business and solving client problems, they're not necessarily the best at that. And so my experience has been the way to get around the lack of diversity in our teams is to break up the problem. Are we actually asking the right question? And I'm involved in space. I'm involved in loads of industries I know absolutely nothing about. I've built my entire technology career on just asking questions, and more importantly, asking what's the problem I'm solving and what's the benefit I'm delivering. That's quite often the question that technocrats miss because they're so busy telling you about the features of what they do and how brilliant they are and trying to prove how smart they are, that actually they forget to answer, well, why is that valuable? Why do I care? And that, to me, has been the secret of how I get more diversity in the businesses that I run.
Brilliant, thank you. And Victoire, You're definitely a woman at the top of the tech game. How did you get into it, and sort of what advice would you give to people who want to follow a similar pathway to you?
Thank you very much for having me. And I love to see this room full of women interested in tech. It's awesome. So I will say a non-inspirational thing at first, but a very honest thing, and then an inspirational thing to answer your follow-up question. So how did I get into it? I started my career about 10 years ago as an agent. I represented Latin American male players in the MLS. Very specific. I did it with my mother. She was my co-founder. Highly suggest not working with parents. And I learned very quickly into that career that football was going to be the rest of my life. And I absolutely loved working in football, even though I think a lot of us that have been in this industry, we kind of see the nasty parts of it, and you go to a match and you're like, it's not magic anymore because you know too much information. And so one of the things that I did learn being an agent was that it was a service-based industry, right? I was only making money when my players were doing a photo shoot, or they were transferring from a club to another, or trying to find them a new opportunity. And I didn't like that. I didn't like being woken up at 3 a.m. in the morning, getting questions around what Valentine's gift I should get my wife, or, just getting, bothered at different times during the day with things that didn't really matter to me. And so tech was the answer to my question of how do I make money when I sleep? That's it. So that's the very honest and non-inspirational basically answer to your first question. But I think it's important. And as women, we kind of expected to be doing things for good all the time, but we also need to make money and we need to be independent. And actually that's where gender equality really, really lives, is when we're financially independent in every single shape or form. And tech obviously is a business that, if done properly, can be very, very lucrative. And so I decided to start Gloria, which was my answer to that question that I had. Little did I know that it was going to be a little more complicated, and moved to Silicon Valley because I had a very basic idea of what tech was. So I have no formal training. I am not an engineer. I was in the Valley known as a non-technical founder, essentially. So basically, again, no background whatsoever. And I still believed, because I knew the value of what I was building, so back to your point, Sanjay, and I was able to articulate it properly to investors and to then my consumers, et cetera, that I was going to be successful at it no matter what. And so my job was going to be to find the right people that did understand tech, which is a very big challenge, especially when you're not technical, and surround myself with them, essentially. And so having said that, in terms of, if you're interested in the space, I think that the first thing, and learn from my own experience, you don't need to be an engineer, or you don't need to have any technical background to basically work in tech. There's a lot of resources online, and my father always says, he's like, how did you learn about all these words and all these things? And I was like, Google. I just Googled it. I nodded my head in meetings. I was like, I know what, MVP is. MVP for football, we know it's the most valuable player. In tech is minimum viable product. And so all those things I said, I know, I learned them from Googling. And I think that there's so many different paths within tech that, if there's women there that bring their own perspective and sensibility and understanding a lot of things, and men sometimes don't, and that's why we're great when we work together, the tech industry would do much better, and especially in football. It's an underdeveloped industry in a way that makes no sense to me. I mean, if we look at every other industry in the world, they've moved into tech at record speeds and made billions of dollars out of it, whilst we were looking at each other and not wanting to automate anything online because it would take business away, or do anything online. I mean, I remember working with clubs in 2014, talking to them about Instagram when Instagram had 100 million users, and they were like, oh, we're never going to use that. Literally today is like their number one source of distribution. And so that I think becomes a massive advantage for women because we're still at the very beginning of what football tech really is. I mean, that term I don't think was utilized until like 2 or 3 years ago maybe, and so it's definitely a good time to do it.
Amazing. Great story and incredibly inspirational. Tanya, a key theme of Be Inspired today is about inspiring the next generation of women in football, whether that's women already working in football or women wanting to move into football. And we talked earlier about that football, and Victoire just articulated it, football is still at the very early stages of sort of being digitized in the way that many industries have been. You've set up Coding Black Females. Do you want to tell the audience about what Coding Black Females is and also sort of what your reasons were for setting it up?
Yeah, so Coding Black Females is the largest network of black female technologists in the UK. And we've actually started expanding globally. So we've got quite a large audience in North America, in Ghana, in Nigeria, in Kenya as well. So we started in 2017 as a small meetup. There's a few of us, maybe 5 of us in a bar. We were just 5 black women working at different companies, working in technology as engineers, coming together to talk about technology because none of us had ever worked with another woman before. And we're like, oh, we should. And this is just after Hidden Figures came out. And that movie has such an emotional connection to all of us. I remember watching it on the plane, crying my eyes out. I was like, I write code in that same language as she does. I know how it feels. Everyone on the plane was like, why is she crying so much? So that's how we started many years ago. And we all work at different companies in different industries with different interests. And we started naturally knowledge sharing because I feel like women are more likely to share our resources and our knowledge with each other. So we just started sharing resources with each other, knowledge sharing. Oh, you've got interest in Y. I already have experience in it. Let me show you around. We started doing informal workshops with each other, which turned into formal workshops with each other, which then turned into boot camps that we started delivering to people. So we're still working our full-time job, part-time delivering boot camps, and it was after our first boot camp of teaching 40 women in the West Midlands with no coding experience whatsoever for 30 weeks, teaching them to become full-stack software engineers and getting them into jobs at amazing companies like KPMG, Goldman Sachs. We were like, hold on, if we can do this part-time in our spare moments, what could we do if we focus all of our time and energy on this? So 2 years ago, 3 of us quit our corporate jobs and started doing it full-time, and now we've trained just over 1,000 women to become software engineers. We've mentored about 2,000 women. We work with some amazing partners, including CarWow, love their space. And we now have almost 13,000 members who are part of our community. And a lot of people, they'll chat to us on the chat board, and they're talking directly to me, and they're asking, oh, got this problem at work, how do I deal with it? I'm like, talk to your boss, here's some advice for you. So we're very much a support network, and we're always teaching each other, we're uplifting each other and teaching each other. This is the latest trends in technology. Learn this, bring this to the table in whatever industry you work in. Oh, here's a use case that you can bring to the table at work using this particular bit of tech. So I'm the head of technology at this tech community, which means, I'm sorry, I talk with my hands, I just realised you moved back, sorry. So I have to be a generalist, and luckily my head's all over the place, and I have an interest in almost every industry, including sports. And my mum reminded me yesterday that I actually used to work in this building. I was here at the very first FA Cup final many years ago, making bad jokes that got me caught by Ian Wright, and I was like, oh no. So I've always had an interest in sports. She also reminded me when she snapped my football manager as a teenager, and I'm still really hurt by that. She said, oh, well, I was bunking school, and she was like, you need to go back to school. Snapped for this. It was 24 years ago, and I'm still not over it. But football and sports in general, I still would like bring it up a lot to people when I'm trying to explain strategizing something to people. I'm like, if you play Football Manager, you strategize the game like blah, blah, blah. And they're like, what is she talking about? Because I bring different industries and different walks into life. So I'm teaching someone a new skill in technology. So I've taught a whole boot camp by myself, and I always try to get to know each student, to know what interests they have, and I've been use analogies based on their interests to teach them that part of technology. So they're like, okay, the first thing I do whenever I'm teaching a class is the strangest task I ask them to do is, how do you make toast? And they're like, what? I'm like, without words, draw step by step how you make toast, because that's a way that you can start thinking, how do I break down a problem? Because my favorite question, yours is what? Mine is why. Why are we doing this? I'm an engineer, I can figure out how to do it. Doesn't mean it's valuable. Why are we doing this? Why is it going to be a benefit? So when I ask them, break down how you make toast, it's why are you doing these steps to make toast? As stupid as it sounds, I've had some really interesting ways. Well, first I go to a shop and I buy flour, and I'm like, why? You could just buy a loaf of bread. And we're like, oh, I didn't think of that. So I always ask, why? Why is my favourite question. Yours is what, Sanjay? Mine's why? Why is whatever you're doing going to be beneficial to people? Why is it going to be valuable? So yes, I'm a technologist. I can figure out the how like that, and I can build it. But before I waste any energy building something, I need to understand why it is that I'm building it. And I don't think I answered your question.
I was just thinking about how I have massive rows with my tech teams all the time because they always say why to me, and it really annoys me. So.
It's a very annoying question.
No, you have. I think, look, what I've taken out of it is that you've trained over 1,000 full stack engineers. I mean, so you are creating a new pathway into an industry, and you're breaking down barriers, and you're being a support and an ally at the same time, which is phenomenal. So. Yeah, and great that we've got a partnership as well, selfishly.
Can I add something to that?
Yes.
Because you just reminded me, one of my best engineers told me something that I'm never going to forget. He told me being an engineer is like having a backstage pass to the coolest concerts in the world. You can get into any industry you want because it's powered.
Oh, let me tell you a funny story.
Technology.
This is football related. Last week, so my nephew, massive Arsenal fan, he's, did you just... I heard that.
Arsenal fans are really like showing off this day.
Yeah, we are.
They're like,
Yeah,
I'm
we
an
are.
Arsenal
Yeah, we
fan.
are.
Before you were so quiet.
He said to me last week, I want to get tickets to the last game of the season. Can you build a bot to do it? I'm like, oh, God, here we go. So, no, I don't have time to do that. And he's like, oh, can you just figure out something? And I was like, give me a sec. I went behind the scenes of the website. I'm like, oh, I love it when websites expose their data to me. And he was like, what? I was like, yeah. I can see all this lovely data from the Arsenal website. And I was getting really excited. And he was like, oh, God, she's a crazy person. I was like, give me a few hours, I'll build your bot, don't worry.
The Arsenal head of IT security is now, yeah. So, Tina, I think what's clear is that we've all wasted a lot of our lives playing Football Manager. But most importantly, what is Sports Interactive doing now to change the perceptions of tech being a man's game?
I'm a Tottenham fan, by the way.
Oh, yeah. Nobody's perfect.
Yeah. We are adding women's football to Football Manager, firstly. That's a big step. But then from there as well, I personally... I'm going out there looking for women who know football and that love football and to bring that passion. And that's why we team up with Women in Football, Women in Games. We're getting the word out there that we want women who love football, but also you don't have to love football. There are other parts of the company where you could just be good at tech. You could, art and animation, anything, a coder. Like, we are open that, and we really want to encourage it. The tech industry and the gaming industry. There aren't many women there, just like the football industry, and we're really encouraging women to come and join us. But we start from a young age, so we work with college, we mentor ELAM students, we work with Loughborough University as well, and lots of people within the company, they're always going out doing talks. I mean, my 9-year-old has told her teachers that I created Sonic the Hedgehog because we're owned by Sega. I'm like, yeah, sure. So now I'm being asked to go and do a talk about how I created Sonic. So, sure, okay, well, I can do that. So yeah, I think it's all about, you know, starting from a young age, getting the word out there until university, and also coming to these sort of conferences and saying, look, we want you. Please come find us.
And adding women's football to Football Manager, a massive step. Can you just give a bit more detail on that, a bit more context?
It's a pain in the... Naively, I thought it would be out within a year. I really thought that. However, I don't come from a tech background. All I do is I love football. I've played football, I've coached football, and I found myself in the data world, found myself at a tech company, and I had to learn that actually the game's been running for about 25 years, so all that in-depth data you get on the men's, we wanted to replicate in the women's, and you can't do that in a year. So I found out. You know, the rules are different. We had to create the plays, we've had to create the teams, the leagues, arts, the animation. Women are different, we move differently. The kits are different. We're having to do everything from scratch. And we want the game to run, the men and women's game to run side by side. It's not going to be a separate game. We're all just playing football. And what we will do, hopefully, is the non-players, the coaches, will move from the men's game to the women's game. And maybe one day that will happen in the future in real life.
Yeah, that would be amazing. Sanjay, you've talked a bit about your portfolio career and sort of that spans sport and space. Not two words you hear very often, but sort of what do you try to do within that career to try and encourage more women to sort of progress, whether that's in technology or more broadly?
I think the first thing is to fix the men, because you know. Because the challenge with inclusion is often, you know, we can frame it for any underrepresented or minority community as if we have to fix the underrepresented or minority community, and actually the challenge often isn't with them. We may have an attraction problem, but you've got to start at the top and fix the people who are currently in power to get them to think in a more inclusive way. So I kind of start there. I could probably tell you just about bits and pieces that I will do myself. I mean, I started doing something about 10 years ago. I was a partner at EY, and we had a strategy for how we were going to be more inclusive. We wanted to be the most inclusive partnership. So we were way ahead of the other consultants in terms of the number of female partners, the number of black and Asian partners. And that was a deliberate strategy and a deliberate choice. So one of the things I did was I made a decision about 10 years ago that I would only mentor women, and I stopped mentoring any men. And I'd always pick people up about 18 months before a promotion round, and I'd say, I'm going to help to see you through that next promotion round, and then anything you learn from me, I want you to pass it on to 5 other people, and I'm going to then drop you after you get your promotion so that someone else can have that round. So I don't know, that was, 30, 40, 50 people that you end up mentoring in those cycles, and I'm still in touch with that. Loads of them are off doing amazing things. Someone's just got a really senior position at Lloyds Banking Group. I think it's down to a personal thing. You do those little things, because I think those little things, which seem little, but actually I used to do a thing called Mentoring Friday, so Feedback Friday. So on a Friday, I would devote most of the day, once a month, to just doing feedback and mentoring, and that would be my day where I just go and I drink a lot of coffee, so I'll be wired by the end of it. So I think there's some personal stuff that you can do around that, but also being an advocate around that table for making sure that you're thinking about changing policies, structures inside the organisation, thinking about how you're going to set your targets, how you're going to achieve those targets, how you're going to cascade them down throughout the organisation, thinking about how you're going to attract people. If you're in an area where you think there's a lack of diversity from, for instance, people coming through from university, we built our own pipeline. We said, actually, we're going to go out to universities and we'll make sure we've got gender balance at the ground floor, and then we'll have proportionate promotions as we go up. So I don't want, I'm not, if I'm 50-50 at the lowest level in the group, when we get the next round of promotions, if your next promotion rounds, the candidates you're putting forward are not 50-50, you have to explain to me why they're not 50-50. Because logically, there's no reason why they shouldn't be 50-50. So it's being taking care that you've got all of those interventions to think about how the system and the structure works, and partly also redefining the problem, which we talked about at the start. If one of the things we did was think about things like project management and business use cases. So we wouldn't let the technocrats win. We wouldn't let the people who would thought that they were the technical gurus. We know everything. We know how to build the technology. Yeah, but you don't know how to sell it because you don't know how to solve someone's problems. And that's things where actually it's much easier to get a more diverse group of people in.
Thank you. Victoire, we know the importance of role models. Who were your role models as you came into football, and then also when you decided to set up Gloria?
It's a good question. I didn't really have any female role models beyond my mother. So I was very, very lucky to be brought up by a woman that had never been scared of doing things that were reserved for men. She was one of the first Latin American commercial pilots. She then worked in wealth management. I mean, she's done a lot of things, and then now she's an agent, which is a football agent. So obviously, having that helped a lot because she would ground me if I used my gender as an excuse to do something or not to do something. And so I think that she was definitely a role model, and I was very lucky to have her in my life. As I continued to grow in my career and become the first woman to do a lot of things, which I never say with a smile on my face because I don't think it's something that I should be proud of, I realized how important it was to get out here and speak and talk about my experience, because then maybe I would become evidence, not a role model, but evidence that you can do it. So if I raised money, then you can raise money. If I sold my company, then you can sell your company. And that became something that it is still until today, even with the work I do at the United Nations, a very big part of my life, right? Because I think that it's, at least to me, it was very empowering to not have a role model, because in a, again, very honest way, I just didn't know what it took. I was very, how do you say it? It's just naive, exactly. I was super naive. I mean, still in everything I do, I'm naive, where I'm like, sure, I can do that. And I had no idea it would take me 147 investor meetings to get my first dollar investment. Like, none of those things I ever, and so I do believe now that there's more and more, role models in football. I mean, the women that set up this wonderful organization, one of them on the back of the room, Ebru, who's on her phone. I'm joking, but I think it's we're lucky in football that there's a small generation of women that were above us. And I mean, even earlier today, I went to Ebru. I'm like, I'm freaking out. I'm having this issue. Please help me. And it's amazing to have that, because sometimes men are incredible. And I, by the way, have nothing against men. I love men. And I owe them a big chunk of my career, my success, and all the mentors that I've had. But being a woman in particular environments is an experience that a man will never understand, even if they want to empathize with you. In the best of ways, they're not going to understand how you feel. If you feel disempowered, or if you feel unheard, or if you feel like gaslighted, which is a very in fashion word these days. Very sad that it's in fashion, but it is, right? Like, it's a thing that happens. And so, to answer your question, I didn't really have role models beyond my mother, but I think that today there's a lot of very powerful organizations like Women in Football that can become that role model. And then at the end of the day, if you can become your own role model, then that's the most powerful thing you can do.
And Tanya, from that day meeting your fellow engineers in a pub. What's the biggest lesson you've learned since that day?
Oh, that's a good question. I think around the time that I met them, I was probably at the height of my imposter syndrome. Like, do I actually know anything? I go to work every day, but do I actually know what I'm doing? And just being in there and being free and comfortable to talk to them about my skills, it was like, actually, I do know what I'm doing. I'm actually a very technical, logical person, and I deserve to be here. So why do I go to work every day and feel like I shouldn't? And I'm like, oh, it's because everyone else on my team was shutting me down. So I started internalizing things and becoming meek and being part of an amazing community. And it brought my voice back and made me feel stronger. Like, no, I do know what I'm talking about. I do deserve a seat at the table. I'm equally probably more skilled than some people that I was working with at the time. So it empowered me and brought back my voice, which I really appreciated. So whenever I speak to someone in the community and they're experiencing the same thing, I'm like, yeah, you deserve to be here. You have the skills. Don't let anyone put you in that diversity corner and be like, can you just be here to talk about diversity issues? No, you've got the skills. You've got the knowledge. Bring that to the table. Yes, you are a woman, but you are a skilled, intelligent, highly qualified woman. Bring that to the table as well, not just your gender, your race, your nationality, your sexual orientation. Bring all of you there and don't let people shut you down. So that's the biggest lesson I learned is don't let anyone put me in a corner.
Very powerful. And Tina, you've obviously moved into gaming in the last few years, but before that you were working in data. What's the biggest challenge you faced on your career journey so far?
Men. Yeah, it unfortunately is. It's been men. I've been in a male-dominated environment. I remember starting out, and I loved football, men's football, women's football, whatever it is. And I used to get the comments. I'm sure we've all had it. Oh, do you even know what football is? Do you know what the 4-4-2 rule is? Do you know what that is? No. Why don't you tell me? Because the sarcasm that I've had to put up with, and as I've gone through my career, I eventually got lucky enough to be offered the role as head of research and analysis, and I didn't think I was going to get it. Nobody thought I was going to get it. There were other men there that were, who I thought were much better than me. I got the role, and then the comments started to come in. She got it because she's a woman. What's she been doing with the owner? Oh, right, yeah. And also, I was 3 months pregnant as well. So put that all together, and it all just, I then went on maternity leave. I had the guy that was supposed to get the job cover me. He, things happened, and I came back, and I felt like I was always fighting. I didn't always have the support that I do now. And I've waffled on. And what was the question?
No, you haven't waffled on
what was
at
I
all.
saying? What was the point?
The biggest challenge you
men. Right,
yeah,
forgot.
men. Yeah.
Men.
Yeah.
There we go, men. Yeah.
Sanjay, you and I go.
I think she meant white men.
And actually, as I went through the years, I did have leaders who did support me. One was a man. One was Asian man as well, Nitty, actually. And yeah, it was the leaders within the company that actually gave me that strength. But the men that I was working with, they were the ones that would put me down. And I did hit rock bottom, I really did. I struggled to believe in myself, and it was only when people were, women in football, Monique particularly, she's picked me up from the floor because she's, called me up and gone, how are you? And I've just cried my eyes out to her. And yeah, I think it's, those people that want to put you down, and you have got to believe in yourself. And everyone's talked about having that support network. Your support network is so important. They are the people that will pick you up and go, yep, you can do this. You can do this. Oh, now I'm going to cry.
I wanna, that is, sorry, I wanna
No, go for it, yeah.
something there. I feel so connected to everything you're saying, and I'm sure some of you also feel this way, and I hope that those that have never felt this way never do. I think that's why we're here, and that's why we're talking and making the safe space for us. Two ways that I've found have been very powerful to fight it back, beyond believing in yourself, which, by the way, is like the foundation of anything in this life. You gotta believe in yourself. Is, on the one hand, making your disadvantage, in this particular case, your gender, your advantage. And so I learned this in Spain, unfortunately. If there's ever been a misogynistic country in football, it's that country. And as an agent, I remember, going in there and they would ask me for coffee and like all this, the typical stories that we hear. And I was like, why do they think so little of me? Like, why? And then I'm like, hold on, they're totally underestimating me. This is the most powerful thing I can do. I just walk in, I look pretty for a little bit, and then I just hit them with everything I need to. And so that became like a very powerful weapon and a way to kind of reframe this whole situation. The second thing, which now with women's football is becoming more and more important and real, is that we speak a lot about the consumers that we serve, right? And how the people making decisions are, in most cases, not representatives of the consumers that they serve. And so how can they build products that serve those consumers? And so as a woman, you have the right to say, hey, I understand what it is to be a woman and I know what we like, and so I can speak and represent. And in that process, make it a bigger business. And so that is something that, we speak at One Football quite a lot. I have one of my colleagues here with me, where, we're looking at women's football as an opportunity to create a female audience. Everyone is, right? It's like finally after 100 years, like now we have an excuse to bring women as consumers. But who are the best people to make those decisions? They're not going to be men.
Do you know, I've been in the room. We're talking about data capturing, and we're looking for a specific demographic. And I'm like, I know what you're talking about. You're talking about women, got you. And we're like, what data do we need to capture? And everyone's talking about it, not asking me a single question. I'm just sat back like, okay, man, you decide. There's a woman in the room. You can ask her. But no, she's not. I was like, cool. I'm going to ask my wife tonight. I'm like, go ask your wife. Cool. I'm going to sit in the corner.
And look pretty.
And look pretty and still get paid.
It's becoming more than an opportunity, actually. There's a necessity here, which is actually beyond that. There's a dark side to it, which is the sort of the ubiquity of AI and the training sets that those AI engines are being applied to means that the risk of baking in inequality is getting higher and higher every day. I mean, you look at the very first iteration of Apple's health app, and it didn't include pregnancy, menopausal periods. I wonder why that was. When you look at the data sets, the training data sets, and this is going to be a really huge challenge. Diversity is not there. This is not just important or nice to have. It's absolutely critical. We're starting to see things like automated sentencing guidelines in the US, and because of the training data that's being used, you get disproportionate impacts on black defendants. Because the training data says, actually, it's based on historical data, this is the sentence that we would normally expect for this kind of person. So there is a sort of dark edge to this, which makes this even more important.
So just before we move to Q&A, if you were to give one bit of advice, this is to each of you, for anyone in the room who is interested in moving into a career in tech, in football or outside of football, what would that be? And I'll start with you, Tina.
Perfect. Miss Green. My.
Painting Mr. Green.
My one piece of advice. Do what you love. I love football. That's all I ever knew that I wanted to do. I wanted to do something in football and inspire people, which is why I'm here, hopefully doing that. But it was football, and I've ended up in the gambling industry, I ended up in the data world, I now ended up in the video gaming world. Never thought I would be in any of those industries. So just follow your passion and go with it. Just go with it. Any opportunity comes up, just go, yeah, all right, I'll give it a go. Don't be scared.
Tanya?
To be honest, I didn't actually give anyone my background when I started waffling ages ago. So before getting into technology, I used to work in the media. I studied to work in the media. I worked in the media at the BBC for many years, scheduling TV shows. And it was the bad internal software that we were using that led me into wanting to get it fixed, which led me into getting into technology. But since getting into technology, I've worked in so many industries. I've worked in video gaming, online gambling as well, e-commerce. I've helped at health non-profits, volunteering. I get to work in so many different industries and see so many different ways of life and meet amazing people. So my piece of advice is just do it. Because I signed up blindly after seeing how much I could earn to do a master's in software engineering with zero experience, and walked away with a diploma in a master's in software engineering, again, with no experience. Just because I was like, it's a high salary I can earn over there. So just do it. Be fearless, just jump in, it'll be amazing.
Okay, I have two pieces of advice. The first one is why. You were speaking about being that your favorite question. I think that when you know why you want to do something, it becomes your sharpest weapon or your sharpest knife or whatever. Sorry, English is not my first language, but it becomes basically the thing that will drive you your entire career. If you wake up every morning and you know why you're doing what you're doing, then there's no comment from anyone that will stop you. There's no discouraging situation that will stop you or put you down, because at the end of the day, you know your why. And so become clear about that. If you're looking to work in tech, why is that? In my particular case, I told you, I wanted to make more money. And I also knew that it was a lot more scalable. I was going to touch a lot more people if I utilized tech as a vehicle. And so that always was my why every morning, every time, every comment, every negotiation, I knew my why. That's the first thing. The second thing is product. So I think one of the most underestimated people in tech are product designers. This is something that you don't need to go to university to learn product. You can read a few books and use your logics. And when I talk product, is the experience, the product design of a user. I download an app, I sign in, I do this flow and this other flow. And we, for many years, have had male product designers. And so a lot of the products that we use on a day-to-day were designed by men. And so today, there's this massive opportunity as a woman product designer to represent our own experience. And I'm going to talk about like a very small example, which here particularly might not be the right audience, but so you see something that we've done at OneFootball. So OneFootball has been around for 15 years, serves tens of millions of users on a monthly basis, football fans, right? And the way that the app works is that you download it and you gotta choose a club and a national team, and then the app will feed you information, articles, etc. on that particular club and national team. And so I was speaking to our chief product officer and I said, hey, now that there's more women interested in football, we might wanna change that flow and maybe offer them different clubs, because maybe they don't know of certain clubs, for example, right? And so, I don't know, Angel City, is in LA. A lot of us, because we work in this industry, we've heard of Angel City, but other women that, maybe saw the Lionesses win the Euros and are now trying to get into football are now being properly onboarded because of product faults like this one that I just said. So if you're looking to get into tech or you're already into tech but you want to develop something that you can do on your own time, and there's plenty of courses and great books out there for it, and it's always ever evolving, is product design. So if I could go back, I would definitely become a product designer. Maybe I will, who knows.
Thank you. And Sanjay, finally, just one piece of advice.
I was going to give you two.
Well, we need some time for Q&A.
Okay. I will give you two, but quickly. So the first one is based on a holiday I had where I stopped at the Carmel Mission in California, and which was founded by a Franciscan monk called Father Junipero Serra. And his motto, which turned out I realized when I was there, was actually my motto in life without realizing it, was always go forward and never go back. And actually, just don't stare at the past. It's useful occasionally to glance at it, but don't stare. Just keep going forwards and let go without leaving claw marks. That was what I realised I was actually pretty good at. That was probably my superpower. I don't have much regret. The other thing is, it's so easy to think in life, well, why me? Why me? Why would I get that role? Why could I do that? Just flip it around. Why not you? It's got to be someone. Why can't it be you? So always go forward, never go back. And why not me?
Absolutely fantastic. Thank you so much to the panel. So we've got about 10 to 12 minutes for some questions, and we will have a roving mic if anyone has any questions for the panel about the topic or more broadly around the panel's experience and their journey so far.
Good, spicy questions. Go for it. I mean, it's a small space. We can answer very honestly.
So no pressure now, but firstly, Tanya, can you also build me a bot to get some Arsenal tickets? That would be great.
I'll share it.
I'll come find you afterwards. It's super insightful. My name is Jackie. I actually work in banking, but I'm really interested in moving into the football industry. And I found all of you super insightful. I'm really interested in the tech space, not just football, but there's, femtech, climate tech, I think, like such a revolution. And for someone who is aware of tech, but not, in the nuts and bolts, what do you think are really good areas to focus on, things that you think, we should watch out for in the horizon?
Do you mean in terms of resources? In
terms of like what could be an opportunity that is not as visible now that people who want to get into tech could start focusing on, researching on, networking in that area?
Okay. I don't want to say this, but Web3, it's probably something that a lot of people not very successfully have done so far, but it is without a doubt going to be our future, maybe too far away, but there's definitely an opportunity there in terms of understanding how to apply that technology to solve problems, because again, that's it. And football. Football is very underdeveloped. There's a ton of opportunities in football. Yeah. That's my...
Anyone else? Any other sectors?
Yesterday was about 5 or 6 different big AI announcements. So Google announced something, OpenAI announced something. So AI is becoming more apparent, and like Sanjay said, the data sets are not great at the moment. So AI is a good area to look into. Google also announced a really interesting health initiative yesterday. So they're working with the World Health Organization to create development kits so anyone can create health applications for different parts of the world in working with the World Health Organization. So health tech is finally getting the attention that it deserves as well.
Yeah, Sanjay, go for it.
I would, look, it's every industry, right? It's like there's no industry and no business that isn't a technology business these days. Every business is a technology business. One of the things that struck me was there are sort of every so often there are really big bits of technology, transformational. So but they require something else to cross a pivot point of mass adoption. So the internet was developed years and years before it actually crossed a pivot point, and what changed it was packet switching. AI was developed years and years ago. But actually what you need is sufficient quantities of data for it to bite on. Now, I think blockchain has the potential to be a transformational technology. We're in the age of individual use cases, most of them which are crap, right? And most of the ones in football are crap because they're all sort of, it's digital panini stickers, right? And pretending that that's an investment. That's a load of cobblers, right? There's a load of litigation that they'll end up finding themselves being attracted to. But how you cross to that pivot point where blockchain gets mass adoption, I don't know quite what that bit is that's going to make that flip into being a base technology, but I think it is going to be a base technology.
Thank you. Any other questions?
Someone over there.
Sorry.
Thank you. Hi, I'm Ellie. I'm currently on a grad scheme with City Football Group working in data and analytics. I never thought that I would be a woman in tech, so I'm quite proud of myself that I'm actually here. So through the work that I've been doing, I've seen that about 90% of the data is on the men's game. So it's great to hear that obviously Football Manager will be expanding into the women's game and hopefully help us get more female data. I guess I want to know, how do you think acquiring more data on the women's game will help it grow as a whole?
Massively. I think, just to point out, the lack of data in women's football is a right pain in my backside. It annoys me because when there is data out there, I'm not even sure it's accurate. Actually, I'm fairly sure it's inaccurate. But I think it's just like any part of women's football, and this goes the marketing, commercial, the injury side, the medical side. Data is just another area where it grows, the women's game will grow. I'm really excited for the more companies to pick up the data, because not only will it help players themselves with their contracts, like we've seen, it will help scouting, it will help performance, it will only improve the game. I could really talk about this for ages. This is like my love.
And there's API providers don't have data on women's football. It's crazy.
You're going to say it's crap, because it is.
Yeah. My father is a diplomat, so I try my best not to disappoint him. But I think something that can be actionable in terms of the data is understanding that it's the foundation of everything, right? And so it took the men's space, men's football, too many years to understand that data was powerful. And so as a result, they were left behind. And so we've heard this a lot today. I'm sure we'll hear it tomorrow as well. We get a chance to do it all over again. Let's do it right. And so it doesn't matter where you work, whether you're a coder or whether you work on the branding or marketing side or commercial side, whatever it is, just collect the data. Just don't waste opportunities to collect the data, because right now we're making assumptions and decisions based on assumptions, which is the first thing that you do. I mean, that's the first thing that you have. But hopefully soon we'll be able to make data-backed or data-informed decisions. And that's going to be a lot more powerful as well. I think the arguments and the discussions are just, they end because it's black and white. The numbers say so. And so anything that you do within your organizations, doesn't matter if you're junior or not, like just gathering data and saving it somewhere is never going to become a problem. If anything, can become very powerful.
Just one point to add to that, which is, there's another massive gap in football. Like, football is amazing at data on the pitch and dreadful at data off the pitch. Right? I couldn't tell you how many women there are in football. No. I couldn't tell you how many black and Asian people there are in football. We don't even have a common data model. This is stuff I've been arguing about for the last 3.5 years and trying to get that kind of data out, or the battles I have with social media companies around giving me a taxonomy of the hate that they have on their platforms. Right, these are the battles that we have about data transparency. We just don't have it anywhere in football. So take some of that technology you're using brilliantly on the pitch, try and point it off the pitch to the people in your workforce and to your future fans and the massive cliff edge in season ticket holders that pretty much every club is facing because they're all my age rather than your age?
Yeah, no, completely. We're going to have to wrap it up in a second because the next session starts in 5 minutes. But I think data is such an opportunity area. And going back to the topic, we said, is women in tech, is it a man's world? Well, I think what we've said is actually tech in football is so evolutionary that actually now is an absolutely amazing opportunity for women in football to really get involved in tech. And more broadly, every sector is digitizing. So actually, it isn't a man's world. It should be a world of equality. It's not there yet, but there is so much opportunity. And I think every one of the panel has said, believe in yourself, believe in your why, follow your purpose. And I think the stories we've heard today have been absolutely amazing. So thank you so much to Tina, Tanya, Victoire and Sanjay for just sharing some really great nuggets of information and your story so far. And I hope you found it as interesting as I have done. And thank you so much for joining us.